Hello and welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Maya Belay, and today we're going to be diving into the most critical aspects of the business success, which is absolutely the candidate experience. So joining me today is someone who has made their mission to transform the way businesses attract and develop talent. Corey Shaw is the founder of North Shore Talent, has a knack for transforming teams and a sharp eye for what it takes to build exceptional people-first organizations. Corey, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Maya. Awesome to be here.
So getting into it, we'll start a little bit with some less serious stuff. But I'm curious to for you to tell us a little bit about who you are, and what's exciting you most right now about the work you're doing.
Yeah, I'm a natural talent acquisition leader builder. I've always adored that opportunity to build a really effective hiring program for many organizations. And, North Star Talent is my organization. And, we're highly devoted to enabling companies to improve candidate experience, to improve that hiring quality and, to really enable them with that sweet spot of the right technology, practices, processes. I live and breathe talent acquisition.
Yeah. And let's kind of go back a little bit. Curious to know a little bit more about you. What got you excited about this space to start off with?
Yeah, I'm a lucky guy. Circumstantially, all the organizations I've worked for, recruitment was something that needed to be built from scratch, from a greenfield approach where, there was either a low talent maturity to the organization, or there was a period of rapid growth, or companies that were merging, and they required talent acquisition strategy and operating model and process architecture and practices to be built from a white canvas state. And so, through my experience and learning, obviously lots of learning, some failings. You really learn how to build an effective hiring program where you can be proud that you've elevated candidate experience and hiring quality. And this is sort of just my opportunity to take some of that wisdom and help other companies do it. So that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's fantastic. Well, I'm curious to dig a little bit. Let's get right into it. Let's say I'm a recruiter starting from scratch and you have lots of experience in this specific area. Step by step, what would that look like? And what would I need to do to build that really ideal candidate journey or in that experience?
I always call it sort of two things: identifying the current reality, and that aspirational state. It's sort of those goalposts, and for the current reality, it's always a combination of identifying what success looks like for that organization. So, garnering all the data, the raw number of hires, the raw number of applicants, making sure it's trusted data, having good, meaningful conversation with those senior leaders in the organization about what they're trying to achieve with their hiring. Really understand where those pain points are. I like to do a combination of sort of running surveys, doing meetings, and sort of marry up the anecdotes with the data. And then once you have that really clear picture of what that current state is in terms of the candidate experience, then you can really start to map out what's that aspirational state for the organization, and what does success look like, and when you achieve success, how are you measuring what that success looks like? And, I call it an organization's unique North Star. And it's really important to understand what that is, because having worked for many organizations, it is different in the organizations about what their brand is and what's their desired employee value proposition, and then really aligning your purpose and your mission and your approach to that North Star for that organization.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'm hearing is kind of like the understanding that current reality of where you are right now as a business, getting that data, having those meetings, and then looking ahead. What is it are we trying to do in the future, and how do we kind of essentially fill that gap? Am I hearing that Is that kind of right, what you're saying?
Perfectly said, Maya. And, as you
Yeah.
sort of do that and you start to identify the roadmap and that journey that you're going to take to achieve that aspirational state, it's so important to have buy-in. And
Yes.
whether it's a recruiter, whether it's a leader, whether it's an HR partner,
Mhm.
it really takes that integrated buy-in from all the stakeholders, and really saying, this is the roadmap, this is the journey we're going to be on, this is what success looks like in the first cycle, and then we'll start to optimize as we move into those next stages. But yes, that's right, it's a roadmap.
And I'm curious to dig into that because I'm sure you have a lot of experience also getting that buy-in, getting those stakeholders, and I know that's probably one of the most challenging things for lots of folks when you have these theories, you've learned a lot of things in school, or you've tried things at different organizations, you're really excited and you're about to dive into it at a new organization, but getting that buy-in is often, as I'm sure like as we know, is critical in actually having a successful program launch. And I'm curious to know if you have any tips for someone starting from scratch. How do you get that buy-in from the executive team or some of those key stakeholders to launch an effective program? And then later, I'm curious to dig into those measures of success that we touched on as well.
Yeah, I mean, for me, buy-in is showing up, really spending the time, I think, done the research to really understand the organization's revenue drivers, its strategy for growth or change.
Mm.
Show up, having done that research, gaining the insight. Spend some time in that area. If you're chatting to the CFO or the CRO or the CEO, you really want to tailor your perspective to what their mandate is. So gaining as much insight as you can about that specific mandate. At the same time, you really want to show up and say, this is my expertise. This is why I exist. This is why the organization is investing in talent acquisition, and being able to, really create that really strong collaboration. And the last thing I'd say is, as you're engaging those stakeholders and you're getting that buy-in, you really want to talk in terms of um, any effective process and outcome does require that really good integrated collaboration and that partnership. And so, the last thing I like to do is tell stories, right? Like, so I can talk till the cows come home about great talent acquisition, process architecture, operating model, metrics, outcome, and that's fine. But you've got to infuse that conversation with storytelling, authentic storytelling about what success looks like, what sometimes success doesn't look like, and weave it into those stories, because I find that all leaders, all folks, they can really understand what that looks like when you tell it in an impactful story.
I love how you touched on the story aspect. I think a story can go so much further than just kind of spitballing different numbers to different folks. It really sticks when we have that story. I'm curious if there's any big learnings in your experience, like in getting that executive buy-in or managing kind of different stakeholders in collaboration, where you were really like, oh, didn't nail it, but this was a huge learning moment for you going forward in your career. Do you have something like that?
Probably one of my biggest learnings is nobody's going to care more about their their employees and their hiring than these leaders, right? So what you really have to do is, I think you have to say, I'm a leader too. I'm honored to lead a talent acquisition team. That team is made up of recruiters and sourcers and, administration folks. And, so I wear two hats, and I sort of try to draw that analogy to their wearing two hats. If they're a chief technology officer or a CFO, they're wearing that finance hat, that technology hat, but they're wearing that talent hat. And so I say,
Mhm.
I'm the same. I wear a talent acquisition hat, but I also wear a leader talent hat too. And I have to spend the time to nurture my team with, the right coaching and performance and engagement. And I really need to think deeply about what are those hiring needs on my team? And you start to talk to them leader to leader. And that's a learning I had to be able to relate to them. The other thing I find that's really big is, speak in their language, right? And so, there is HR jargon, there's talent jargon. And if you're chatting to the chief technology officer, you might want to talk about the fact that it's really near and dear to your heart to build effective process architecture as you guide the technology to that architecture, in a lean approach with trusted outcomes based on that standardized process architecture that's measurable, that's auditable, right? And then that technology leader, they get that. They live in that world, right? Or if you're chatting to the finance leader, you might want to say, you know what, it really matters to me that we compress the vacancy rate in the organization because we want the maximum number of people from sort of that FTE plan to actual number to be in the role. And this is really near and dear to my heart. So you really want to talk in their language. You really want to be able to have them make it relational to them. Some of my learnings, Maya, were that you've got to try to move beyond the HR speak, and you've got to speak the language of business.
Oh, that's such a great tip and such a good nugget for so many people. It's really, what I'm hearing is really translating whatever you're needing into the language of whoever that kind of audience that you're connecting with, because connecting with a sales leader versus a CTO might look so different, right? And often very kind of different needs in both of those areas as well. And kind of selling and collaborating with them will look so different in terms of what you're needing from them, what they're needing from you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you show up and you're using sort of that business language, if you've done the research, if you're relating to them leader to leader, then you're building that trust and rapport. And I think they understand you a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we kind of zoom out a little bit, I'm curious to know about the candidate experience from a whole. What's working well right now? What organizations are doing it well? What's not working? Curious to dig into that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think the organizations that do it well are the ones that really focus on um, understanding what are those critical stages of the candidate experience, all the way from just surfing their career site to application to, going through that front end screening process, the interview process, right through to shortlist and onboarding. And as you hang together all of these stages, what you really want to focus on is that, you're sort of dualistically engaging and attracting and creating that excitement and that awareness of the organization's culture, of its brand, of its opportunities, of what it's like to work there. At the same time, you are trying to understand what is their passion, their skill set, their superpowers, their areas of curiosity, and you're sort of coalescing that together. And if I sort of start at the beginning when they're going to your website, like there are tremendous technologies with, what I would describe as episodic memory and, a very authentic chat experience that expeditiously answers the low-hanging fruit questions about the organization, but at the same time is guiding the candidate to a meaningful interaction in the next stage. And as you move into the next stage, you're really starting to deepen their perspective on the organization's culture and its opportunities. And, with technology today, you can do it so elegantly, so expeditiously, so that folks aren't waiting days and weeks for an answer. They're answered in seconds, and you're serving up that insight to them in an experience. And as you think about that experience, you're really doing that opportunity to gain their feedback. And so blend it with a combination of surveys and videos and make it interactive. And there's so many amazing technologies that can do that. And then most importantly, as you move them down, as you're starting to get serious about them, they're starting to get serious about you. you really want to set clear expectations with them about about those interviews, about the screening process, about ensuring that you're really starting to gain their feedback, because now they're getting really excited. You're getting really excited. You really want to enable the leaders with the right perspective about that candidate's background, their curiosity, their skill set. What are those superpowers, and how do they fit to the organization's role and opportunity? And then as you finally go through that last stage, you really want to make sure that the folks that hit I'll use HR jargon, the short list, that they are treated with that white glove experience. I mean, they've gone through the staging. They're at that final stage. Whether you hire them or not, they really deserve that meaningful feedback, that authentic interaction, that personal touch that it takes to thank them for their time and their interest in the organization. I guess the last thing I would say is that what I am really excited about with today's technology stack is there are technologies that give candidates a very authentic sneak peek and insight into the culture of the organization. Many organizations have an incredible employee brand, employee value proposition, and it's authentic, it's meaningful. But let's be honest, sometimes people sort of are a little bit skeptical from the candidate side about recruiter speak, about, what it says in the job description, and because it really exists in the organization. Is it authentic? And so there are amazing technologies that will authentically connect candidates with people inside the organization. And it gives them that sneak peek, and it gives them that opportunity to get acclimatized to what the culture would be like. And I think that's so important because, we all want to join an organization, join a team, work for a leader where, you are truly engaged and excited, and it's meaningful for your next career cycle, and you're really reducing that opportunity to what I call land with a thud. As in my recruiter days, I would always call folks 3 months after they started in an organization, and I said, "Are you 5 feet off the ground, or did you land with a thud?" Right? And when I got it right, they were 5 feet off the ground. They were absolutely stoked about that job, that career path they were on, the leader of the team they were joined, and the critical success factor was ensuring that they had that view into the culture. They got to know the team before they even joined the organization. They had that authentic picture of that, of what the opportunity would be like when they worked in the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such a critical point right now where that alignment between, and being honest about the current reality and what that current role might look like, because I think that's something that we see so frequently, or have in the past, where we're also as recruiters selling this role, we're excited about it, and someone joins our team, and it's not exactly what they expected. And then that begins, that's another issue. And it's really not fair at the end of the day to that candidate. And that's a huge part of their ongoing experience, right? As it translates from our candidate experience into our employee experience. And that's not really what we're looking for either. I love how you said that the 5 feet off the ground, or did you land with a thud, is such a good, that I just love that tagline. That's fantastic. I'm curious, you're talking about some of these tools that are really marrying this process and going from getting that sneak peek into a culture. Is there any tools that you could share with us? Any great ones that you're seeing are working fantastically at the moment?
Absolutely. I mean, I always like to say that, every organization, small, medium, large, needs an effective HR information system. And, there's lots of great ones, the big ones like Workday and SAP to, Greenhouse to Avature to all these systems. And you really need that anchor point for the employee experience, for performance management, for pay and benefits. but they don't always deliver the most amazing candidate experience and
Yeah.
really elevate the opportunity for hiring quality. And so what's key is that you hang these systems together with technologies. A couple that I would call out is Terrazzo is a great technology that does give that cultural sneak peek, that gives that opportunity to be able to connect, the candidates when they're in that passive stage, when they're just sort of testing out the organization, to be able to say, hey, if you really want to see what it's like to work in the organization, I can connect you with leaders through an AI algorithm that will connect them to either future peers or leaders in the area that they're going to work at. As you sort of think about that candidate experience, there's great technologies like Humanly, like Covey HR, like Phenom, like Paradox. And what they can do, these technologies, is that they can elegantly, authentically manage that candidate experience really in a expedient way. So, they're serving up the insights based on what that candidate is seeking, that information on demand, and that opportunity to engage them, and most importantly, give the organization, give those recruiters, give those leaders trusted data and insights that would say, you know what, here's where our drop-off rates are. Here's where we're doing really well at that candidate engagement. Here's where we're doing a really good job of showing off our brand. And so that's what I would say. The final thing I would say is it's got to work harmoniously, right? And so whatever your talent tech stack is, you've got to spend the time to really identify what success looks like, then build the process architecture, and then hang it together harmoniously. Because at the end of the day, the opportunity is for trusted insights, and these HR information systems, they're amazing, but you've got to integrate these systems so that you're getting that trusted data, so that you're understanding what that experience is like.
Yeah, absolutely. It is such an interesting thing. Like when we think of our marketing team, for example, like and any of our clients and customers, we're tracking their every move so closely. And the idea of just kind of marrying and translating that into our employee experience and understanding, where are people falling off? Where are we getting the most engagement? And what does that really look like? And having those key measures of success. I love how you really tied in all of those different programs and making sure that they work well together. I know that's something we've, like, you kind of are building a house, for example, the building a house analogy. You start with one, and then you add another and another and another, and they don't work well together. And it's something that's so helpful to look forward first. What does success look like for us? And what is that kind of ideal tech stack going to look like for us going forward?
Absolutely. I always say you've got to really identify, that aspirational state. What are those critical requirements for a great candidate experience? Who needs to be involved? And then you build the process architecture to that desired state where you're delivering value at each stage. And then you review the technology, call it features and products and opportunity. And then you align and point the technology in the right direction. I find one of the tragic flaws is organizations, they do it the other way, right? Like these technologies, they are tremendous. I could do a diversity of activities, but that doesn't mean that that's right for your organization, for your process, for your aspirational state. So once you, as I say, point the technology in the right direction, then obviously then you're set up to making sure that it's that right candidate experience for your organization, your unique North Star.
Love that. Yeah, absolutely. When we were thinking of, you mentioned a few nuggets around like those key measures of success previously, and I'm curious to dig into that. I think, like, from my perspective, like our measures of success and some of those key metrics are always changing. I'm curious to know, from your perspective, what do you think are those key measures of success right now, and what should our talent acquisition leaders really be thinking about, and translating that into the vision of, like, you're translating that for the audience that you're going to be connecting with. So what does that executive team need what do your key stakeholders need in terms of those key metrics? Because I know they're always, there's some that I've heard recently also are kind of like in the past. And I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I think you want to sort of almost start at that widest aperture point and say to the CEO or the CRO or the CHRO, say, you know what, in the last annual cycle, we've had 80,000 applicants for our, I'm making this up, 5,000 jobs,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that is a tremendous opportunity to engage a vast number of people in our employment brand, because every candidate is a customer or a potential customer, right? And so what you want to say is these are opportunities for us to, really create that strong candidate experience. But then as you sort of dig in a little bit on what are those organizational critical roles, those roles that tie to, revenue growth or the change the organization needs. And then you say, for these opportunities, we absolutely want to be very targeted and intentional and proactive. Those are my favorite adjectives in talent acquisition when it comes to those critical roles that either keep the lights on or drive that organizational growth. And when you're being proactive, targeted, and intentional, what does that mean? Right. And so as you're thinking about your outbound sourcing and what the technologies you're using to woo and romance those candidates and really nurture that passive talent. And then in terms of some of the measures of success, you definitely want to have an aggregate candidate net promoter score. You really want to understand what was their experience like. And as you sort of break down the elements of net promoter score, it's everything from what was the application experience like, the recruiter advice, what was the AI experience like? What insights did you get about the culture at the front end of the application process? And, as you went through the interview process, should you get to that point, was it a comfortable experience? Were you able to, really understand at that point, what's the critical mandate of the role in the organization? And, as you gain that insight and you aggregate net promoter score, you do it through a combination of hanging together the surveys that you've gained, all the way through to onboarding. And it's so important to understand where the pain points are. Are they with the technology? Are they with the process? Are they with the recruiters? Are they with the leaders? So that you can use that data, you can turn it into talent intelligence, and you can say, you know what, we're 4.2 out of 5 on candidate net promoter score. We're doing an amazing job at the application and sort of that shortlist phase. But we're not doing very well as we move people from shortlist to onboarding with perhaps technology provisioning, or perhaps it's, from a diversity point of view, we're actually seeing higher candidate drop off for female technology talent than male tech, like whatever it is. But you've got to have the data you can turn into intelligence. So it's really important to understand, what are those stages of the candidate experience, how you're measuring those stages with trusted data so that you can really have that aggregate net promoter score. You can break it down to ensure that, you want to get 5 out of 5. You want to continue to have a really great candidate experience. Because the very final thing I'll say is that once you hit that sweet spot of a great candidate experience, then you really are setting yourself up for hiring quality. And, obviously hiring quality is that opportunity to have engaged, productive, diverse talent, who really are helping the organization grow.
Yeah. And especially from an HR perspective, like that quality hire is especially important these days as we're really going into a place where we're really thinking about that ROI on our employees, right? To use that language. But what is that ROI? And to get those quality hires means that you're putting money and you're getting a return on that. And it's such an important thing for business, especially right now as we're seeing some areas, shrink. So businesses are thinking a lot about ensuring we get the best bang for our buck out of the hire too.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes there's a bit of an obsession on the cost side. And cost matters. I get it. What we're spending
Yeah.
on technology, recruiters, what we're spending on employee branding and marketing. And there is a cost, but you can elegantly convert that cost into an investment, right? As you're invested in what does it mean when we hire the right people and they're productive and engaged and they're retained and they're diverse. And if we're hiring externally versus internally, what is their succession trajectory? And as you start to define what those metrics are, then you're really saying, okay, in the last cycle, we've had 80,000 people apply. We've made 5,000 hires, but we actually beat the mean on productivity, engagement, retention, diversity from the last cycle. And as we beat the historical mean through, a really good candidate experience and maybe a great employee referral program, I mean, there's so many ways to do that. Then as we beat that mean, we actually increased the economic envelope of the organization by this amount, right? And it starts to change the thinking of that it's just a cost to it's an investment, and it does deliver at that organizational.
Yeah, I love that reframe. On budgets, we're looking at costs, but thinking of it really as that investment piece helps reframe it for everyone who's listening. That's a great, great nugget there. Thank you. I'm just checking the time, so I'm being careful on time. So there's so many more questions I want to ask you, but I'm curious to know, what do you think is one thing that most companies are doing well and that they think they're doing well, but they really aren't doing well? If you have
What a great question. I think one of the things is that they've formed a very what they think is a compelling, authentic employment value proposition. So many organizations have done an amazing job of building one, but how do you know that it's immersed and integrated and it's working and it's effective, right? And that's where it's not just words on a shelf. It's not just the post you're doing on a LinkedIn. It's not just the job description. It's truly that opportunity to be immersed in culturally into everything you're doing. So, so that, if you're hiring in one region versus another region, is it a symmetrical experience? It is, where are the gaps? And, because ultimately, what I love about employee value proposition, many organizations call it the employee promise. And I love that, right? Because it's not just, saying, this is what it's like to work here. It's like, this is truly what it's like to work here. This is what our employees are saying about their pride in the organization, why they're spending their time and their passion and their superpowers in the organization. And you want to be part of this team. So it's not just that authenticity, but it's making sure that it's immersed throughout the process that way. And I think that there's opportunities to measure that. So finish by saying, I think what a lot of organizations do is they create an incredible EVP. They sort of slap it onto their marketing and their descriptions and some of their outbound approach, but it's much more than that. It has to hang through all the elements of the employee experience. Because if I am going to use a little bit of HR jargon, organizations do have that buy, borrow, build rate. And what you want to say is on an annual basis, there is a lot of people change. And was our employee value proposition, was our promise, was it immersed throughout all of the opportunities to match, acquire, or borrow talent?
Yeah, absolutely. Is what we're saying we're doing, is that promise being held up really on the other end of it? And how are we kind of measuring that in throughout those different key moments throughout the employee experience? That's right. I love that. Yeah, no, that's a great one. I love the tagline, that employee promise, more so that, we talk about our EVP all the time, but that employee promise is such a good one, and just in plain language too for folks.
There's a folks that emotion, right, Maya? Like it says the promise we have to what it means to work here.
I absolutely love that. And I'm thinking of you've worked with so many different organizations. Who is absolutely nailing that candidate experience? Do you have any examples of a few organizations that you've seen, or some stories where they've just had such a knock out of the park kind of experience?
Yeah, I would just call out Canada Life. It's just an incredible organization that built
Yeah.
an authentic, impactful employee promise, but they walk the talk, and they walk the talk in terms of, how their employees are engaged, and that experience as much as it is for that candidate experience. And, as the promise came to life, there were opportunities to say, are we walking the talk? And it's all about leaders saying, you know what, these aren't just words on a page. This is how leaders should behave. This is how our work environment should be. This is how, we should really be proud of that amazing brand we have on the street when it comes to candidates. And so I found that they spent the time to really back it up and make sure that it was authentic and measure its success. One of the things they did really well was they tied it into the reason they existed on the consumer brand side. So they would have this saying at Canada Life that they're there to improve the physical, financial, and mental well-being of Canadians. And so that's a powerful consumer brand statement, right? But then when the employee promise was being built, it was, well, are we doing that for our own employees? And so that's what I loved about it. It was that immersion of the employment brand with the consumer.
Yeah. Well, that authentic alignment means so much, and it goes so far in building trust with that candidate, right? Throughout that process. You get to the organization, you start at the organization, and then you're like, wow, this is really what I thought it was going, like, this is what they were selling. These are the words, the values on the wall, that we like to say, but this is truly how I'm seeing and engaging in the organization. And the values that we've listed are really, we're living and breathing them, throughout every key milestone of that employee journey.
That's right. So important.
Yeah. And so I'm thinking, imagine we're 5 years from now. What do you think the candidate experience is going to look like to start? And then what do you think is happening today that you think is going to completely change in the future?
I really think it's leaders that are talent champions, in the sense that recruiters will truly start to evolve into those talent concierge, and that opportunity to, create the forum for a great candidate experience. But it's all about leadership. It's all about leaders that really deeply understand the role they play. I call it talent champions, where they're really living and breathing the brand, and they're engaging with talent in an authentic way. They're excited to engage with talent and to not only hire the right people, but really deliver that top-notch candidate experience. And I think that what's so key about that is that it's not just the middle management, it's the senior executive leadership, and to really have all of those folks, buy in. I think the winning organizations will do that, because through the pandemic, through where we're at in terms of what I call democratization of the talent landscape, it is so critically important that the organizations, do their best to say, this is what it's like to work in the organization, and have those leaders lead from the front when it comes to their role as being those talent champions. And I think the winning organizations are going to be the ones that, like, I often used to say to my leaders, like, we can hire the best recruiters, that we can build the best EVP, we can appoint them, have the best tech stack. But if we have leaders behave as talent champions that really take that mandate to be those brand ambassadors, to really deliver that great candidate experience, that great onboarding experience, if we can do that, then we will create such an incredible opportunity for the organization to improve its candidate experience and hiring quality. And so I think the winning organizations are going to be the ones that truly understand that, and really enable their leaders to do that, and educate and train and help them achieve that.
Yeah, absolutely. And if there's one thing that you think is we're not doing today, if you had to put your mind on, like, the future, what's happening in the future in this candidate experience, do you think something's going to be radically different in 5 years from now?
I'm really seeing the evolution of talent leaders to take take HR data and turn it into meaningful intelligence, but go the extra mile and say, this isn't just talent intelligence. This is critical for the C-suite, for the board to understand that we can truly elevate the economic envelope that way. And so it's almost like, if you draw the analogy to, sustainability or diversity, and having that seat at the board table to talk about the criticality of those things. I think talent acquisition, talent intelligence to really help enable the growth of it, that is going to be what I think is going to be something that happens in the next 5 years, because, there is a way better opportunity to take data lakes, take that tech stack, and really make meaningful insights to the organization and show what that impact can be. I think that's going to be something that we're going to start to see a lot more of.
Yeah, and I'd love to see that too. Yeah, absolutely. That's a world where I definitely want to be in. So that's fantastic. Before we wrap up, let's finish with something fun. If you could describe your dream candidate experience in 3 words, what would they be?
It would be authentic, it would be meaningful, and it would be caring. Those are the words.
That's amazing. Yeah, I love that. Tell me more. Why do you think those 3 words?
Authentic, because I do think you really want, it's tied to what we said about the promise and just what it says on the description or the recruiter, what the organizations, the leaders and its employees are truly, believing that this is the amazing place to work. I say meaningful because you really want to have the moments that matter, right? So as a candidate, I want to feel that as I'm going through, whether it's, having a conversation with a chatbot, or going to the career site with episodic memory, or having a great interview experience or great onboarding experience, or even getting declined and getting meaningful feedback. It's meaningful moments that matter. And caring is, at the end of the day, we are in the business of humans, right? And we should really understand that, we want people to walk away feeling like, it mattered to us that they took their time to show their passion, their curiosity, their expertise, and they brought it to the organization. And we should treat them like that great customer experience that organizations want. And so really show them that they're not just a number, that we really cared about their candidates.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much, Corey. This has been such an inspiring and an eye-opening conversation about how we can really reshape the recruitment and create that exceptional experience for our candidates. Where can people connect with you and learn more about your works?
The easiest place is on LinkedIn. It's sort of the place I hang out the most. Of course, through LinkedIn, you can check out my website, North Star Talent. And, it's just an honor to be a talent gatekeeper, right? So that opportunity, whether it's, just gaining feedback, I call it net giving and helping each other. It's just an incredible honor to be a talent leader in the ecosystem.
Fantastic. Thank you so much again. We'll definitely be staying in touch on LinkedIn. Thanks for tuning in to all of our audience. And until next time, please stay curious and keep striving for greatness. So, thank you.